Welcome to Business Law Unlocked with attorney Shannon A. Holmes.
Hey everybody, welcome to an all-new episode of Business Law Unlocked with attorney Shannon A. Holmes. I'm your host, Mike Leon. Shannon is a seasoned attorney with a broad range of experience in all facets of business and sports law, and he's equally versed in asset preservation and wealth transfer, and he serves as general counsel for a bunch of serial entrepreneurs out there. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about asset protection, wealth preservation. What does it all mean? Well, I got the attorney that's going to answer those questions. Shannon, as always, good to see you, buddy. And for those who may not be familiar, what is asset protection? Why is it so important for business owners and professional athletes out there?
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me, man. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. I'm glad you asked, Mike. Part of my practice that we don't talk about a lot is our injury practice. So we do a lot of personal injury cases as well. And what I learned over the years in doing that is, man, how many gaps there are in people's armor, if you will. And so we started to develop a practice with our business clients where we make sure that they do protect the money that they've earned. Represent lots of doctors, other professionals, entrepreneurs, athletes, those who have, earned high earners, business owners who've earned a lot, accumulated a lot of assets. And we started looking at, well, how do we protect them in the event they're sued, in the event that there's something happens, right, and that they didn't plan for, and then how do we make sure it's transferred properly to their family, loved ones, charity, etc. There's always this idea that it's kind of morbid in a sense, but it's reality where a person will lay down and they have their family around them, and they'll pass away, and everything's written down properly, and they just pass on right into the next life, if you will. But there's always those untimely events, Mike, that we have to be prepared for. And so we started identifying ways to do that. And one way we do that, Mike, is just making sure that our clients have proper entities, whether that's an LLC when they're setting up a business, whether it's a corporation, and making sure that entity has all it needs in its bylaws and operating agreement to make sure that it functions properly. And then obviously making sure that we address succession and how to transfer both business assets as well as personal assets in the event that's required.
Can you expand a little bit more on the client asset sides? In your estimation, as you've been doing this for a while, what are some common risks to clients' assets that you've seen in your practice?
Great question, Mike. Well, obviously, oftentimes things happen we just can't plan for, right? Imagine a major peril happens with a business, with a client's business. We've seen situations where a client owns a business, his insurance lapsed for the entity, and now there's a huge peril, someone's seriously injured or dies, and so there's no insurance proceeds there. So now the complete business assets are in play, and then sometimes because a person hasn't properly maintained their entity, whether it's their limited liability company that has specific state requirements to make sure you're in good standing, or their corporation, which has some of the same and or more requirements to make sure it's in good standing. If those things lapse, now your personal assets are in what we call in play within the bounds that the other party can pursue in the event they've experienced some injury while engaging with that person's business.
Shannon, I mentioned at the top of the show about wealth preservation. So what does that look like? How does that differ from somebody just simply saving money or investing?
Right. And as you can imagine from my seat, we don't talk a lot or get involved much with our clients regarding how they should preserve or how they should handle their money. But what we do is once they've earned it, we want to make sure that we give them various tools to protect what they've earned. Oftentimes, again, as I mentioned, it's just a matter of setting up certain entities, whether it's an LLC, a corporation, limited partnerships, family limited partnerships, some of these very technical vehicles that can be used to preserve the wealth that they've earned. Then when we get into their personal assets, oftentimes we're accompanying that with some form of a trust so that the trust has ownership of their personal assets. And then there are different types of trusts, which obviously we can't get into those details here, but there are different types of trusts that we share with our clients in a combination with some of the other entities. Again, Mike, all in an effort to make sure that what they've earned, what they have worked hard for is protected in the event there is some unlikely occurrence or event that occurs.
So Shannon, I would love for you to expand on that, because we touched on these structures, the trust, the LLCs and stuff like that. But specifically when it comes to protecting assets from, let's say, lawsuits or creditors, how do those legal structures, those tools help that person?
Oh, Mike, amazing. Good question. Let's talk first from a personal perspective. Well, when you're talking about your personal assets, if you were to engage in an event that puts your personal assets into play, with respect to the other party coming after you for, let's assume you have a personal. Well, let me put it this way, Mike. Let's assume you own a business. Your business is structured inside of your LLC, your limited liability company, but then you sign on as guarantor for a loan that your business takes on. So your business is on the hook for that line of credit, but you also say to the bank, I'm personally going to guarantee that the business pays this loan back. And the business goes belly up. Happens all the time, unfortunately, with various businesses, but we see it a lot in the restaurant business. And so when that happens, now if the bank calls that note due and says, hey, the business is not paying, Mr. Business Owner, you signed on as guarantor saying you would pay this loan back, then it's incumbent upon that person to pay it back. If he or she doesn't pay it back, now his or her personal assets are within the bounds of the bank coming after them to fulfill that repayment. And so, again, we would have wanted to structure things in a manner to make sure that the person's personal assets are not in line of fire, if you will, in the event you sign on as a guarantor and then have this event occur where, the bank is calling the note due and you're responsible for repaying it, and you may or may not have the ability to repay it. What then happens to your home and your cars and your bank accounts, et cetera? Again, we would want to make sure we address that at the onset versus having to deal with that at the tail end.
Shannon, we mentioned in a previous episode about IP and this intellectual property and how you protect it. How can protecting intellectual property play a role in maybe preserving a client's long-term wealth?
Great question, Mike. Yeah. So again, if we talk about a business owner who creates an idea does well. And along with that is branding, right? Company branding. So their logo, their trademark, things that they have that we as consumers attribute to that. We want to make sure that at the end of the day, that business owner may be able to use that. That's part of his or her business, right? That's part of his or her business capital that he may be able to use in the future for further earnings, right? There are situations where oftentimes the original business has closed, it no longer exists, but the intellectual property still has value. And so in that case, if it's properly protected, the business owner will then have an opportunity to capitalize on just that, the intellectual property.
Shannon, what role does insurance play in protecting some of these assets?
Oh my God, Mike, that's a huge piece, right? Like anything else in life, we want to make sure that the business is properly capitalized and properly insured for risk, right? So, and we can't go by what others do, right? Each of our businesses has their own risks. And so we want to make sure that we suggest our clients meet with proper insurance professionals to make sure that they do have the proper insurance in place to protect them against, again, anything, especially when you're operating a business, right? There's just no way to control all the facets, whether it's internally with your own employees or externally, even if it's your delivery driver going out and having an accident, right? It could be your delivery driver's fault. So do you have proper insurance on the vehicle? Do you have workers' compensation plan for the driver? And then do you have proper insurance insulating your overall entity that's running that business? So insurance plays a critical role.
Shannon, I've asked you this on other episodes about this ideal time for this entrepreneur to kind of start building a plan in place. For somebody listening to this right now, what is that ideal time? If they're an entrepreneur, or if they're an athlete, to start building this protection plan?
Soon enough. It's too late, right? As soon as possible. Make sure that you grab legal counsel and involve them in the process and the planning of the business. Again, as I may have said before, Mike, and I said to others, you're going to spend a lot of time and resources on your business don't forget to include legal in that process, in that budgeting when you're deciding to invest, whether it's a new idea, whether you're buying a business, whether you're developing a franchise, whether you're doing real estate, whether you're using intellectual property, whatever the case may be, you want to involve legal as soon as possible so that, with their guidance and strategy and planning could potentially put together safeguards and to help you insulate yourself and to put guardrails around your business that you'll need as you emerge. And then if you have an evolving, emerging, growing business that's expanding, again, you're going to consistently need legal counsel to help you go through that process.
Shannon, you only get one piece of practical advice for somebody listening, watching this right now. What can they take away today, right now, to start protecting what they've worked so hard to build?
Well, great question, Mike. Have your visits with your legal counsel. Make sure, I think there are 3 people you need on speed dial if you're going to be running a business: your legal counsel, your CPA, and your banker. Make sure you form those relationships, have them close by, have them on speed dial, and use them accordingly, right? Don't be bashful about spending the money to protect your investment, to protect your time and resources. We can't get time back. So if you're spending time in your business, make sure you're including legal counsel with that to make sure that you have all the protections and guidance and counsel you need to be successful.
Shannon, we can't thank you enough for the time and insights and analysis on all this. We truly appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And thank you to everybody out there for listening and watching to another episode of Business Law Unlocked with attorney Shannon A. Holmes. If you want to connect with Shannon right now, do me a favor into your web browser, ShannonAHolmes.com. Visit him today, get a consultation, get this man's advice. Make sure you listen to this man's advice, and be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a review, comment, share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it today. As always, I'm Mike Leon. We'll see everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.